Yeah, I had nothing for that one. I'm sorry. I should have been a little bit more creative with that. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be doing something very fun. A little while back, and by a little while, I mean all the way back in the end of March, which thank you guys for your patience, by the way. I'll explain that in a moment. I put a post on my channel talking about how recently I did a video talking about Deep Rock Galactic hot takes that I took off the internet, and I wanted to hear your specific hot takes in regards to Deep Rock Galactic, and you guys responded with so many of them. And today we're going to look at them and see just how spicy those takes really are. And as a quick disclaimer as to why it took me so long to get back to this and to why I have been a little bit quiet recently, as you can see behind me, I just recently moved into a new place. And between that, taking care of my wife, my full-time job, and getting things ready for our newborn that's on the way, I've been a little bit preoccupied. So thank you guys so much for your patience and for your dedication to watching my stuff while I've been gone. And I will try to be a little bit more consistent with my content going forward. But without further ado, let's get into some of these spicy Deep Rock Galactic hot takes that you guys submitted. Dottie being the only place where multiple dwarves can't expedite the repair process should be considered a bug, but has turned into a sacred DRG knowledge for all the wrong reasons. Yeah, I can kind of see where this is coming from. The fact that multiple people repairing Dottie doesn't actually do anything, and it just is the same speed no matter what. I feel like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it could be a bug. It could not. Either way, it's still fine. The missions still go through pretty well, but I wouldn't even necessarily say this is a hot take. I would say this is just a normal opinion. So spice level on this one, pretty low. I don't know if it's a hot take, but I think Hawkeye system is low-key kind of underrated. Yes, you don't get as much damage, but as someone who is god-awful at trying to manage sentries, I find it best just to be able to slap it anywhere in a cave rather than having to face it in a certain spot. Plus, the ability to concentrate high-value targets and a longer range is nice. For the same reason, I also prefer to run a single sentry rather than two. I am with you on this one, my friend. I don't even think this is a hot take at all. I think this is a very cold take. I think this is just an opinion, and I am the exact same way with you. I understand that you do not get as much damage when you use the Hawkeye system, but I am just lazy. I do not want to focus on actually putting my sentry gun in a specific spot facing a specific direction. I just want to be able to place it down and forget about it. And the same thing is true for me as well. I love using the single sentry, A, because I just like the damage that it throws out, and B, because I don't want to have to keep running back and forth between my sentries to fill them up. So I am completely with you on this one, my friend. Cryogun and Wave Cooker are both underrated weapons. Wave Cooker's lingering effect helps with jellies and little spiders. Its range also helps driller target ceiling dwellers. Cryo pairs with the C4 at best. Crystal nucleation helps with crowd control and up-close bugs that rush you down. It's a better get off me than the primaries usually. Is it his best weapon? Probably not, but the right overclocks, it's slept on. I recognize this is not the best on ammo, but I love it. I don't even think this is a hot take. I think this is just correct. I think this is just something that is just true. Cryogun is phenomenal. The Wave Cooker is great when you pair them up together, especially if you have the right setup. Like you said, with crystal nucleation, it is really, really good. For crowd control and for swarm control, it is probably one of his best things. In fact, I think I have a build video talking about this very specific setup. So yeah, this is also not necessarily a hot take. This is just an opinion. This next guy has a whole dissertation. He has several different hot takes, so let's go through all of them. My hot takes. Number one. Thorns as a perk is underpowered and rarely worth using. I don't think it should have a cooldown, and the fact that NATO-site shockers don't trigger its effect is dumb. Kind of a garbage perk. Number two, not sure how to feel about this, but I feel like we don't get enough XP for high hazard level missions. I usually don't feel inclined to play hazard level 5 for profit because the XP difference from Haz 4 feels negligible. I feel a slight XP boost from Hazard 4 and up would be nice. Number three, a more humorous hot take. I shouldn't be shot by my teammates for wearing Dawn of the Dread armor. Every time I use it, I get friendly fired in the middle of a fight because my team tells me they thought I was an enemy. I walk on two legs, dang it, I don't look like a glyphid. I was kind of digging deep on those hot takes, but I feel those aren't really that hot. I tried though. Well, thank you for the very different number of takes you had here. We'll talk about the first one, Thorns being an underpowered perk. I can kind of agree on that to a degree. I do like Thorns just because it does help me take a little bit of pressure off, but yeah, the fact that shockers don't trigger it is kind of annoying. I mainly just run this just for swarmers, which in that sense I do think it is still strong. I don't think it's necessarily underpowered. The fact that it does have a cooldown is very annoying, and yeah, I do think shockers overall should be affected by it, so I do kind of agree with you on that. Not getting enough XP for high hazard level missions, I think that was also a big factor as to why Haz 5 Plus was implemented, because a lot of people probably felt the same way, and especially once you get to the end game where you basically have everything, you're really just doing high hazard level missions just because A, you're used to them, B, you just want the extra challenge. You're not really doing them for the XP gains, you're not really doing them for the increased progression. You're just doing it because you've played the game a lot and you just like playing on higher difficulty levels. And as for the Dawn of the Dread armor take, I can't really tell anything about that. I personally don't have that armor set, so I've never had that problem, but that is a hilarious take, so I will say that your teammates should stop shooting you. Hollow Bough is my least favorite biome. The thorn things are way more annoying than the stuff on the fungus bogs, for example, but the spores on fungus bogs are made up by the immaculate vibe. But I suppose each biome has annoyances except for the goat azure wield. Alright, so I was gonna hate on this one until you mentioned the goat azure wield. Yes, it's the best biome in the entire game. Hollow Bough being worse than fungus bogs. I mean, it's pretty annoying. I still wouldn't think it's nearly as bad as fungus bogs. And also you said least favorite, so this kind of isn't a take, this is just an opinion. But if we're talking just objective truths here, personally, I think, yeah, Hollow Bough is definitely not nearly as bad as fungus bogs. Just because even the aesthetic, even when you said the aesthetic and the immaculate vibe, I personally don't get that from fungus bogs. It still just looks depressing to me. But I can agree that Hollow Bough is at the very least annoying. My hot take is that I should be able to check the randomizer loadout before dropping into a mission. I like to know what my random loadout is going to do, otherwise I'm sat in the drop pod on landing checking it. A little bit of grammar on that one. My other hot take probably shouldn't make it into the video because it can make some people irrationally angry. I think you should be able to play female dwarves. I know Dev said it's somehow impossible, but I don't care. Well, I mean, in terms of the female thing, I can't really do anything about that. That's just what the devs want to do, the sort of design they wanted to go for the characters, so I can't necessarily say that. I do know in Rogue Core, one of the classes is going to be a female dwarf, if I understand correctly, so that's at least a step in the right direction for that. As for the checking the randomizer loadout, I mean, I think that kind of ruins the fun a little bit in my opinion for the randomizer because that's the whole point of it. You're not supposed to know exactly what it is, and also you've already drank the beer, so you know it's going to be random no matter what, and the only way to stop it would be to go into the mission and stop, or I believe a Leaf Lovers doesn't cancel it out if I understand correctly. I don't think if you drink a Leaf Lovers that resets it. They could add that in if you want, but then at the point of doing that, what's the point of even having a randomized loadout if you're just going to keep re-rolling it so you get a random loadout that you like? The whole point of having a randomized loadout is that you don't know what you're going to get and you just kind of have to work with it. So I'd say it's a relatively hot take, at least for the first half. The second half, again, Rogue Core is kind of going to solve that a little bit. Regarding all weapon default upgrade tiers, never take damage upgrades over extra ammo. The extra bullets to rain into enemies more than makes up for the extra smidge of damage. I feel like this is kind of dependent on what weapon you're particularly talking about. If it's a very high rate of fire weapon where the extra damage increase is not going to make a whole lot of difference, then that might be the case. But if you're talking like something that has significantly more damage output per shot, and you're just increasing it in that regard, I don't know if I necessarily agree with this one, because in some cases, the damage upgrade is just really good because the other options are just not as good. I can't think of anything off the top of my head at the current moment, but I do think that there are certain circumstances where you will just want to take more damage over whatever else is option. So this one, I'd say it's relatively spicy, but not too much. Needing a blank matrix core to gain a new overclock from a Tritolite mission, only to need a second matrix core to actually unlock it at the forge is stupid. 2 cores for 1 OC is way too expensive. By the way you're describing this, I'm assuming you mean the step to focus the core into something should not be the case, which sure, I can understand that. Or potentially the fact that you're trying to say that we shouldn't have to forge the matrix cores once we complete them in the mission. That should be all we need, which sure, I can kind of understand that. Maybe you're basically saying it's a little bit too clunky and a little bit too cumbersome and too many steps to create overclocks for our weapons, which that I can kind of get. I do think it kind of helps to add to the overall progression a little bit, and it makes it so that way resources still have value in the late game. But I can understand why people don't like the idea of, okay, I have a blank matrix core, gotta find a machine event, which is a random chance, and then I have to focus said core, and then I have to bring it back to the space rig, and then I need more resources to craft it. So I can kind of see where people think that that might be a little bit more of a process than it needs to be, but it really isn't that bad, especially as you get later and later into the game where you have so many resources that it doesn't matter. Doretta missions are worse than industrial sabotage missions. That is probably the spiciest take we've had so far, and somebody was not hugged when they were a child. The game's progression in the beginning is very boring and feels sluggish. This I kind of disagree with. I think that in the beginning it's very rewarding because especially as you go through missions and you don't really have anything, the fact that as you progress and you level up, you're getting new things, getting new upgrades, and you're kind of building out the class and seeing how it works out. I think that that's personally, to me, very satisfying. And it gets, in my opinion, very boring and sluggish towards the end because you don't really have anything to work towards. I'm somebody who I like to have things that I can work towards. And once I have basically every option set before me, then it kind of starts to lose its luster, because then I know there's always something better I could be using, or I know there's always some kind of an optimal setup that I can have. Versus in the beginning, when I don't really have to worry about it too much and I can just kind of use whatever I want and start gaining more things, I like that personally a lot more, but that's more of a personal preference thing. I guess I can kind of agree with that, but I also don't necessarily agree with this one, just because personally, I like the idea of getting things progressively as you go through at a decent pace instead of either too fast or too slow, and to me is a lot of fun. There is no one class you should constantly play, but you should instead play all of them to have the most diversity in your gameplay. This is not even a hot take. This is just a fact. Yeah, absolutely. Play all the classes you like, except Scout. Holding E to repair or build stuff is lazy at best. I'd much rather have mini games like we already have for hacking. So this might be just because of the fact that I've been playing a crap ton of Warframe recently, but I definitely completely agree with this. I do think just holding E and doing the repair thing is especially once we have things like the jetty boot stuff that we have, or the wire cutting mini game. I do think they could add a little bit of flair to the fixing stuff. Maybe, you have to do, even if it's something as simple as like a Gears of War active reload system where you just have to hit skill checks at certain points or something. Just something like that to sort of flare it up a little bit. Again, that might just be because I've been playing a lot of Warframe, and the hacking in that is a lot of fun because it's a bunch of different mini games. But yeah, I would agree with this one. I am not excited for Rogue Core. I don't like roguelikes, and I feel like everyone on PlayStation will quit playing DRG, whether permanently or not. I figured we were going to get to this point eventually, but at least we got all the way to the end of the video before that happened. I understand people's concerns regarding Rogue Core, and I've made several videos about it. Other content creators have made several videos about Rogue Core. I personally am very excited for Rogue Core, and I think that I don't think people are going to stop playing normal Deep Rock Galactic. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I think it's just going to be that there's going to be two communities that can exist simultaneously. And overall, I think it is going to be a great thing for the series. But if you want more information on that, or want a deeper thought on that, I've made several videos regarding Rogue Core. And there you have some of your DRG hot takes. This was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, thank you guys so much for your patience, as I've been very busy the past couple of weeks. I'm going to try to be a little bit more productive and a little bit more steady with my schedule. So thank you guys for being here for me. And as always, I hope you found this video informative and entertaining. If you did, please be sure to let me know by hitting that like button, and consider becoming a member and subscribing today, as it really helps me out a lot. Rocket Stone Miners, I will see you in the next video.